Well, hello and welcome. This is Soularize 2021. We've done all the why. Why do a workshop? Why do a startup pitch? Why do a village? And now we're kind of getting into the how to do these things. We not only want to present an opportunity for people to be able to showcase their work, but also support them along the way. And these are some of the pre-event workshops, in a sense, we're doing, and there'll be a number of workshops during the event itself. And so we're so excited about you being here. The startups can be from anywhere. They can be from just an idea in your head to all the way to a place where someone might even be already in some funding rounds. So we want you to know that what we're trying to do with the showcase here is not try to say, here are the best. What we're trying to say is, at whatever appropriate stage you're at, how can we support you? And even the support and quote prizes or ways in which we're supporting people financially are really not for the best showcase. They really are designed for people who might be at a stage. So Danielle working with Innofaith, she's going to be working with Interfaith Works, Elan Babchuck, who runs the Glean Network. In a moment, we'll introduce him. I've been through START. It's an amazing program that helps you kind of start from idea to pitch and beyond. And they're connected with Columbia Business School, and Jack was a joy to be with. And so all of these programs have different values for each of us, but the relationship altogether just is invaluable. And we hope that we are going to be able to build here in the app and in our network kind of a place in which you can meet other people. I'll tell you, the phone calls that Shane and I have been on with a number of people who are getting ready to kind of either do startup pitches or workshops or do villages, they are amazing people. And it is going to be really fun to watch this thing come together in whatever way it's supposed to come together. So let me introduce you to Elan. Elan is an amazing friend and wonderful person. And when we started this, I thought, man, we cannot do this without him. Over the years, we have had wonderful, amazing, just conversations. And those conversations have taken wing. And I have watched through him and his support to be able to start a number of things. And his just wisdom and insight, kindness and gentleness, along just with his savvy. He is a smart man and has coached a number of projects and friends. And I have just really enjoyed working with him. So Elan, maybe if you want to do a little bit more of a CV introduction, you can, but thank you so much for being with us and taking us this whole next level.
Thank you. Thank you and Shana for pulling together this incredible initiative. And, I love that what you took, this is exactly like what, ever since I've known you, Spencer, exactly what you're so good at doing is you take the idea of a conference, flip it on its head. Well, what do we do at conferences? It's like, well, it's like 1 day or 2 days and you leave feeling jazzed, but then the energy dissipates and you forget about everybody you just met. And you're doing it the exact opposite way. You build up the energy until we get to the mountaintop in October. And by that point, the work is rooted, the relationships are solidified, and the energy and the momentum is already at full steam, right? That's how you innovate. That you take this thing called a conference and you flip it on its head. You do it the exact opposite way and you have 100 times the impact. That's like just the two of you. Oh my goodness. So I'll say a couple words. My name's Elan Babchuck. I'm a rabbi. I come from a business background, have an MBA. None of that qualifies me to stand before you today, right? None of it. But I want to tell you what does. So my first startup was a camp for families and children with special needs. I co-founded it when I was 17, but that wasn't my first pitch. And I want to tell you about my first pitch that just came to me when Pastor Eugene said, I'm a pastor, I've never done a pitch before. By the way, completely wrong, right? Name a sermon where you really wanted to get people to take action. Name a sermon where you really wanted people to feel deeply like they could be the hero of the story instead of just bystanders as the world spun around them, right? You've given that sermon. This is that sermon. That's how you do a pitch. But my first one, I was in 4th grade. My brother was in 7th grade, and Reebok just came out with the pumps. This is like, I don't know, whatever, early 90s. And I'm from Boston, and D Brown was like the dunk contest champion in the NBA. And he wore the Reebok pumps. And I was like, I got to have a pair because I'm terrible at basketball and I'm really short. And this is obviously going to make me good at basketball. So my family, we didn't have a lot of money, and there would be no pumps coming. But my father's cousin was married to someone who worked at the factory at Reebok. And once in a while employees would get factory seconds, or like, ones that were not quite perfect and whatever, and they would get access to them. So he got my brother a pair because my brother was really athletic and tall and like handsome and, good at basketball. So he got my brother a pair, but I didn't get one. So I wrote a letter to cousin John. I said, and I made the case. I said, let me tell you about myself. I'm shorter than most people. My friend is a foot taller than I am. He's really good at basketball. I'm not athletic. I'm not good at basketball. And I think if I got a pair of these pump shoes, I think that I could, they would let me on the basketball team, and I'd be able to play, and I'd jump higher, and I would run faster, and maybe hit more shots, all because of you. You have that opportunity now. Okay, he got me a pair. They happened to, the factory leftovers happened to be 1.5 sizes too big. So I stuffed my shoes with tissues for the next year until I finally grew into them. But I got a pair of Reebok pumps out of that pitch. So every one of us has done a pitch before. My goal here now is to like demystify the pitch. It's whatever you see on Shark Tank, they rehearse that 100,000 times. Half of it's probably not even true, okay? Your job is to be truthful to yourself. And this is the single most important thing. I'll share slides, we'll do our thing. The single most important thing is this. It does not matter what your audience learns. It matters how they feel. Same thing with a sermon, right? Not one person in the world thinks, I probably should be a nicer person tomorrow. Everyone in the world knows they should probably be nicer tomorrow, right? Everyone knows should probably hold the door for people and let people in and yield in traffic and like do nice stuff and give more charity. But how many of us at the end of a sermon, knowing the fact, yes, that's a fact, actually takes action? Because it depends on how you feel. At the end of it, do you feel like you want to jump out of your seat and do that thing that the person invited you to do? Do you feel called to do it? Do you feel inspired to do it? It all starts with storytelling. And you are not the hero of the story. You are not the hero of the story. That's where we're going to start. I'm going to share my screen here. You let me know if you have any issues seeing it. Can everyone see that screen okay? Okay. Pitching 101. And it's like, if 101 is a college level course, this is like pitching 1. This is like, it's really, really basic. My job is to demystify all of it. So here's what you need to know. First, why does storytelling matter? Because if you're building a startup pitch, you're going to want to tell everybody you're going to want to tell them the technical elements of your widget. Oh, well, it's a new wallet, and on the inside, it's going to be one color, and it's fake leather, so it's environmentally sustainable, it's good for animals, blah, blah. I don't care. Tell me about why you care about wallets. So don't worry about conveying information. They'll get the information. If they're interested enough, they're going to click on your website, or in the middle of your pitch, they're going to Google who you are and maybe find some interesting stuff. So don't worry about telling them what the thing is about. You want to tell a story about the world that it can build. That's your goal. Next, we're going to do hero's journey. And then finally, I'll give you the 6 elements of a pitch. So too long, didn't read, skip to the end of this. And there's one slide at the very end of this thing that will tell you everything you need for the 6 slides. But hopefully you'll stick with us for the next 15 minutes here. Why does storytelling matter? 1, it puts your audience at the center of the drama, because our brains process stories in the first person. So you can watch any television show, any movie, right? Find the main character. It's the job of that storyteller, whether it's the writers with the director and the camera people, et cetera. It's the job of the storyteller to help you feel connected to that main character, so that when they're anxious, you feel anxious. When they're scared, you're scared. When they have a great success, you feel successful. So that, if you notice, there's been a big shift in advertising and marketing just over the last 7 or 8 years, as there's been a greater understanding of how empathy works among your audience. So it used to be that Pepsi will tell you how great Pepsi is. It used to be that the shoe will tell you how great the shoe is. No one cares how great the shoe is. Every shoe company has access to all of the top level fabrics and materials and scientists who can make shoes fast and wonderful. No one cares about that, right? What they want to know is this shoe going to put me in the position of achieving whatever I want to achieve, of becoming the person I want to become, right? That's what you want to invite people in to understand. Get them in the first person. 2, using storytelling 22 times more effective than traditional marketing. Again, the world is flat. Making products, the cost of entry into a startup is so low right now that the second a new product comes in the market, there's 100 copycats right after it. Why? Because we know copyright law is toothless, and entry into the marketplace is so low. So what does that mean? You cannot sell something just based on its features and its benefit. What you need to invite people to understand is tell a story about that thing. What is the story about that thing? Okay. It invites customers to be proactive, right? Think about Nike's market share when they launched the Just Do It campaign. It's literally telling you there's one thing to do. Whatever it is for you, that's what you have to do. They went from 18% in the sneaker market share to 43%, 18 to 43. I'm going to give you one other statistic that's going to blow your mind. Snickers bars. Raise your hand if you ever had a Snickers bar. If they're delicious, they're satisfying, and unless you have a peanut allergy, they're pretty good. Paula has not had a Snickers bar. All right, fine, all good, okay. All good. But here's what I'm going to tell you about Snickers. The commercials, maybe 7 or 8 years ago, if you watched a Snickers commercial or saw an ad, it was just going to show you the caramel and the peanuts and the chocolate. And it should sell itself just based on those things. Of course, what it doesn't do is tell you why it's any better or different than a Milky Way or a Charleston Chew or a Twix or anything of the sort. My friend Bob Mesta, who's founded and created 3,700 different products in his life, literally 3,700. He created the Hungry Why Wait campaign. And it told a story about what happens when you have a Snicker. Oh my gosh, you can have a Snickers bar and then you're more patient and you're more kind and you're more yourself. You know what happened after they launched that campaign? Snickers sales went from 300 million to 3.1 billion in 1 year because they told a story about the product and they made you the hero. You're the one who decided to have a Snickers to curb your hunger so you would stop being a jerk. That's it. It's a Snickers bar, but you're the hero. That's why storytelling matters. That's why storytelling matters. Okay? Next, hero's journey. I say this as a rabbi who was in the pulpit. One thing my mentor made sure that I never, ever, ever do is you never tell a story where you're the hero. Nobody wants to hear the story about the clergy person who went and saved the other person. Good for you. That's your job, right? That's what we pay you to do. But what they do want to know is, are there ways that whatever story you tell, that they can see themselves in that light, in that heroic light, that their own lives can be illuminated by the possibility of being a hero, right? It's also why Deadpool was such a popular superhero, because he's like just a regular Joe, right? That's what's interesting about him. He's sarcastic. He's got, caustic wit. That's what people are interested about. It's not that he's got superhuman strength or anything. I never saw the movie, but that's what he seems like. So I want to point to one great example of a hero's journey. Look how small the text is at the top left of this ad for Vanderbilt University Owen Graduate School of Management. It's an MBA program. You look at this, what's the first couple things that jump out at you? Oh my goodness, here's a person who is smiling and clearly very happy with whatever her experience was. Here's a quote right in the middle. They didn't brag about how far they could take me. They asked where I wanted to go. So who's the hero there? It's not Vanderbilt. This person whose name, I can't even read it, Almeida Biggers, from MBA class of 2016 who interned with Deloitte and the Minnesota Vikings. This is a graduate of this program. She is the hero of the story. Vanderbilt University is not the hero of the story, she is. At the bottom, programs for every stage of your career, from the first rung up on the ladder to the corner office. It's your career. It's about where you want to go. It's not about where Vanderbilt is going to take her. Just think about that shift. This is the kind of storytelling you want to do when you make a pitch. Now, I love this.
We are open until 8 p.m. tonight.
We adapt and we change. We're here to keep you safe.
Who's the hero of that story? It's not Google. Google only shows up 29 seconds into the 30-second ad. Google only, now of course you know the colors of Google and you know their palette, so you knew it was a Google ad if you've stayed attuned to it. The hero of the story are the Macs, right? All of the different, there's a bunch of companies with the name Mac in the title. Mac's clothing store, Mac's ice cream, Mac's sporting goods, who have all been closed during the pandemic, and they're all reopening. These small business people are the heroes of the story. Google is not the hero of the story. What a difference that makes. Google, everyone knows how powerful Google is. Everyone knows what Google can accomplish. Everyone knows the features of listing your small business with Google. But what they don't know is that they can be a hero in that story. That's the difference here. That's what we're trying to accomplish. So what is a hero's journey? Now, typically, there are 7 steps of a hero's journey, but I don't want to overwhelm you, and 7's a big number. So let's go with 3. Joseph Campbell, by the way, was one of the first to write about the hero's journey. Look at any biblical story of a great adventure or a great leaving story. Most religions were founded by someone who left somewhere. That's really what the hero's journey is based on. But let's put it into 3 acts. That's it. Right? And by the way, I put that little quote, in a world. So like, you ever been to, you see the movie trailers, and there's one guy, by the way, there's one guy who's the one who goes, in a world, and then it's one person who's like in really high demand and whose voice is just so, known. Anyway, so sort of as you're giving a pitch, you are inviting people into a different world, an alternate reality in which your startup, your project, your venture is in full effect. It is taking, it is having the impact that you want it to have, and it is in process of building the kind of world that your audience wants to live in. So in this world, there's an evil adversary. This is another way of calling it, you can call it a problem statement. The evil adversary is a pain point in the customer's life that your product solves. So what's the pain point for Snickers? The pain point is you have a sugar crash. You have a blood sugar crash at 2:30 p.m., by the way, which is when Snickers sales, M&Ms, and 5-Hour Energy all get sold in the highest quantity. And your afternoon Starbucks, Paul, I saw you're drinking Starbucks. So most people go back to Starbucks around 2:30 or 3 o'clock. The pain point is blood sugar crash, and that causes me to become not who I want to be. That's the pain point. So now it's really important when you're giving a pitch that your pain point is very clearly and authentically in the voice of your customer. This is especially for faith leaders, incredibly important. We cannot project our theology onto our customers, onto our audience, our constituents, the people that nobody wakes up in the morning and says, oh, I'm unaffiliated. Oh, I'm unchurched. Oh, I need to be saved today. Nobody says that. Okay, so even if that's what you think their problem is, oh, I don't have God in my life. I missed services this morning. I missed worship. No, you didn't. You had a perfectly good morning. Okay, you had a nice leisurely Sunday morning. That you didn't feel like you missed anything. It's really, 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 really important. And that when you name this pain point in the pitch and in anything you do around your startup work, that you can authentically say it in the voice of someone that you want to serve. And if it doesn't sound like it would come from them, then they're not going to believe it. And it's not a problem that they actually have. Okay? That's so important. I've made that mistake a million times, a million times. So just like make sure that that's important. The second, act 2 of this hero's journey is the wise mentor. This is your company. This is your brand. This might even be you, especially in the early stages of the startup. The founder or co-founder is very much intertwined with the identity of the startup. Now, eventually you want to decouple that for a healthier relationship and work-life balance. But initially, the wise mentor is your brand. Your brand shows how this person can overcome the adversary, how this person can navigate the loneliness in their lives, how this person can experience a deeper sense of belonging, how this person can live a trauma-informed life, as Sean was talking about before, and that is integrated, with their in a holistic way. That's the wise mentor. And finally, you want to install the customer as the hero of the story. This customer conquers the adversary and stands victorious. This is the end of that story. So it's 3 acts. Who's the adversary? How does the mentor show up and give guidance? And how does the customer, by making whatever choice you want to invite them to make, become heroic? So if I'm giving a sermon in which I want people to hold doors for other people to be more kind in the world, I'm going to talk about, what's a real pain point, that the world is just feels more disconnected than it ever has in my lifetime, or that people, have fewer opportunities to really experience the other and look them in the eyes. And, because we live in a world where every interaction, just like this one, is mitigated by some for-profit company that basically tells us how to interact with each other. So what's the wise mentor? Door opening LLC. I'm going to get everyone in the world to hold the door 5 times a day for somebody else, just in an act of kindness. And who's the hero? The person holding the darn door, who gets a smile from the other person, and all of a sudden we're creating a more connected and loving world. That's it. And all we're doing is holding doors. No big deal. Maybe eventually, doors will hold themselves and we won't have to worry about this. But until that happens, this is it. So take a minute now, right? If you're watching this at home, just think about, what is the evil adversary that you want to invite your customers and your beneficiaries and your constituents and your people to take down? Who's that evil adversary? What's the pain point in their lives? And who's the mentor? How is your organization gonna become a part of their lives to offer them some guidance? And then how can we position them as the hero of the story at the end of all this? Okay. Now, what's interesting, about that Snickers, if you remember the one with Joe Pesci, there was one where Joe Pesci is the cranky, angry person in the afternoon. Somebody gives him a Snickers, and all of a sudden he's back to being you. What the interesting thing is, you might be inviting them to reflect on ways that they are getting in their own way, right? That they are both the adversary and the hero, especially when we're talking about matters of the soul and matters of the spirit and matters of community. That's a hard case to make. So you better make sure it's compelling. And you better make sure that that this last sequence in this story feels really exciting to them and that feels really resonant to them. So finally, the pitch. Again, what the product does versus what the product does for me. Don't worry about the features so much. Worry about the benefits. Spencer often talks about minimum viable benefit, which I love, the MVP instead of the MVP. we need to think about what is the benefit that's going to be brought into this person's life. Bene, good. What is the goodness that will come about when this person engages with your offering? These are your 6 slides. Cover. What's the title of your organization? Who's on your team? What's today's date? Whatever you want to put on there that conveys a little bit about, like, in a snapshot, what's going on here and who's about to talk for the next 3 minutes. 2, vision and mission. I don't think, first of all, a mentor of mine, Aaron Satterwhite, said words are expensive when it comes to vision and mission. So if they're really long, you've lost me at, we're trying to build a world that blah, 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 blah. I'm out. Make it quick, snappy, good, interesting, and catchy. So I would actually suggest you can put them in writing on the slide if you want. You can also articulate them out loud, because the more writing you have on the slide, the less that the audience is making eye contact with you. So decide how you want to play that out, but you can, and again, remember, it's not about you, whatever you hand to somebody afterwards or email them afterwards, that can have all the information you want on it. But the slides should be really simple with not a lot of text, because you want them to make eye contact with you. Who's your constituent? What are they about? What do they struggle with? Why do you care to serve that constituent? Why does that matter to you? What's your project? How does it work? Who's it for? When are you, tell me about all of the interventions and programs and ideas, and what's this about? Sean did a great job of telling us, like, okay, I'm planting a church. Here's what it's about. And here's how we're going to do it. Wow, it's amazing. In 30 seconds, by the way. Great. You want to tell us everything that we need to know about the project and about how it works. Remember, try to tell a story about it rather than listing features. Finally, what's the launch plan? Here's our intention going to market. We've already tested out blah, 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 blah. We've prototyped this. Tell us about how you're going to go from this idea that just put, the hair on the back of my neck is standing up because it was so inspiring. Tell me how you're going to make that a reality. And last, always have an ask. Always, even if you're practicing a pitch in front of your friends, that the end of that ask should be, hey, can you tell me 3 more people that are willing to be a test audience for this? Hey, do you know, we're going to do a micro giving campaign. Do you know anyone who would give $5 to something, this idea that I hope comes into fruition? Everybody in the audience, you should have an ask, okay? Now, what you want to make sure of is if you were in that audience and you just got the 2 minutes and 45 seconds of what preceded it, are you going to say yes? If the answer is no, then work harder on what preceded it. Or if it's a 5-minute ask or pitch or whatever. Those are your 6 slides. Again, now if you're just joining us because you fast forwarded through all the other stuff, welcome to the final slide. These are your 6 slides to make a powerful pitch. Feel free to rewind and catch the rest of it, but this is what you're going to need as you prepare to upload your pitch onto the app. So that's it. I'm going to stop there. And
I'm Aaron Krause from Philadelphia, and I'm known as the daddy.
I forgot
of
about
the
this
Scrub
guy.
Daddy.
I forgot about this guy, but Google Scrub Daddy, and you will never see a more excited pitch. By the way, I use the Scrub Daddy, and I think it stinks. It fell apart after like a week. But it's this guy. You will never find someone more excited about anything than he's excited about sponges. So more power to him. I throw that on at the end just because, like, you should see he's a real master of how to give a pitch. I'm going to stop there, open it up for any questions, or just turn it back to Spencer, and you can take us home.
No, I love that. Thank you so much. I mean, it is so powerful, just your presentation, contextualization. And that's just, I love it. Thanks so much. And I was even thinking about, like, that vision or slogan or idea, like Charles Lee, who's another one of our advisors. He said something the other day of what he does. And I'm like, wow, I wish I could make it that clean. You know what I mean? And it was basically, he says, I'm going to try to lower the number of people who go to their grave with a good idea, and you can vision that, so the problem is, I hope for everyone listening, is that it can take a long time to get your pitch right, but practice, try it. I mean, don't you think it's like, in hindsight, you look back and go like, oh, that was so simple. That was so, but that journey for each of you, like it is a tough journey to get to that. But again, that's why we're here. That's why we're here for each other as well, is to be able to try to help you think through how to do this in a safe environment with a group of people who kind of love and care and really want to see these work. And again, the idea of faith is any faith, any person who's trying to develop something. That what our theme is humane spirituality. And we're really talking about restoring human dignity for people. And in your project, any of you can do that. So Elan has opened the floor. If anybody does have a question on any part of the presentation that you had, and even if you feel like your question's a crazy one, we'll go ahead and it'll spark another idea. We have a question in the chat. It says, how long should the initial startup pitch be? What's your thoughts on that, Elan?
It depends on the format, right? Shark Tank, it's like, I think they go for 10 minutes. I had a friend who was on it. I think they go for 10 minutes and then they cut it down to, I think the initial pitch is about 6 minutes. And then they cut it down to 90 seconds to 2 minutes. I think for our context, it's going to be harder to get people to stick around because it's online and because you're not in person. So try to keep it down to 3 to 5 minutes. Really 5 minutes at the high end of it, and make sure you get at least one moment in there, one story where you're not doing the high energy stuff, where you just kind of slow it down and make sure that you're conveying the soul of what you're trying to do. That people, oh wow, I get the world that Sean is building here. I now feel like I am a visitor in the universe that Eugene is imagining. So 3 to 5 minutes, but make sure you get one of those moments where they can see the transformational vision ahead.
I love that. And ultimately, within your pitch page, within the app, you're able to upload PDFs, images. There's a whole bunch of different things that you can do to support that if you want. But within that one video, I think the other part is, don't be afraid to put your pitch video up initially. Just do it. And then people will give you feedback and then redo it. Like nothing is ever done. They talk about a book's never written, it's only rewritten. I think a pitch is never pitched, it's only repitched and repitched with feedback. And that's the other part. So, yeah. That's
exactly right. Shane asked a good question here for the 6 slides. The story soul is the project slide. You can actually put it anywhere, right? That's where it can be in the cover story as you're talking about who's on your team. Let me tell you about, there was one day when Shana and I had a conversation and we both experienced the same issue that day in totally separate circles. And it was that day that I realized, like, this is going to be the thing that keeps me up at night until we solve it. There's no way we're the only 2 people in the world that struggle with this. There's no way, but nobody has stepped forward to actually solve that issue. We're going to do it. I want to tell you why. So it can be there. It can be in the constituent profile. I want to tell you about Joanna. Now, Joanna I met, and this was what was going on in Joanna's life. And I saw that she made a really big decision and she chose to do da-da-da-da-da. And since that day, Joanna's been a completely different person. She's this and this and this and this. That's what we're trying to do here. Now you notice Joanna made the decision. Joanna is the hero, but the brand is the guide. The organization is the guide or the mentor. So it can go anywhere. By the way, it can go in the ask. It can go in the ask. You finished. And anyway, this is how my project works. And we're going to launch October 1st. We have 10,000 in seed funding. We need to raise another 30. Now, before I tell you how much we need to raise from this group today, I want to tell you about what's possible. I want to tell you about what could happen October 1st if we actually are able to launch and hit our plan. You can do it anywhere.
Within lean methodology, they talk about love the problem, not the solution. How about what advice would you give people who are kind of like really stuck on maybe at the end of the game rather than the front end of the game? You know what I mean? Like they really think they've got this thing and they keep pitching to people and they're like, I don't need it. I don't want, you know, like letting go sometimes isn't, as you've worked with people, you know, how do you help them kind of actually look at the real issue that needs to be addressed?
I'll say a couple of things about it. The first is that you always have to go back and do discovery. Go back and interview more people at every stage of the process. Your idea, if it just came to you as a light bulb in the shower, myth of the garage moment, with no real interaction with the people that this thing is supposed to serve, it's probably not a good idea. Okay. So, but then let's say you had the idea and it was a decent, then you go talk to people. Then you start shaping the idea. Then you go back to people with an initial idea of it. And then you get feedback on it. Then you go back. And then even after you launch it, you know, you get feedback about it and then continue shaping it over time. Like Spencer said, the book's never written, it's rewritten. Project is never launched, it's relaunched. So that's the first thing I would say is go back and talk to people. If you're getting no after no after no and negative feedback from people you're kind of pitching to, go back and talk to people, right? The real people who you want to serve. The second thing I would say is, and it's tough if you're further down the line and you think you've got like a project or a product in hand that people should want. The second that you start spending money on rebranding when you haven't made sales yet, or you haven't gotten people to join and become a part of this thing and you haven't built traction, if you have identified that marketing and branding are the problem, it's not the problem. You know, a shinier delivery system is not going to change the essence of what it is that you're trying to put out into the world. So save that money and go back to discovery, go back to learning, go back to the source. And the source should be the people that you want to serve. And make sure that you can really understand things from their perspective. And that the more that you can see their world through their eyes, and that they allow you to do that, invite you to do that, then you can start to see, oh, this thing that I was going to do, it's not really solving a real problem for them. They would never articulate the problem statement the way I have. So that's no good.
Okay, Eugene, go ahead on mute.
Hi, Elan. Thanks so much for your presentation. This framework is really helpful. I think the biggest challenge that I run into is somewhere, I forget which step you were describing this about, you know, don't share too many details about the widget, right? Don't go into detail or, you know, not too much detail about what it is you're trying to build. And I think that's probably the toughest part for me. And I'm wondering if you can offer some thoughts about how to filter what's actually helpful and what's probably too much information.
Great. So you've been to a church before where the pastor has something called the curse of knowledge. Now I'm going to talk about the pastor as a third person because of course none of us would ever do this. And you've sat through a sermon that was 30 minutes long that could have been 5. And you sat through the sermon where they quoted 15 things from scripture and sources since then. And then they brought it, you know, just to like sprinkle, maybe they added a Brene Brown quote to like, you know, make it a little more relevant and modern, but they have 15 scripture quotes that they want to make sure to shoehorn in here because they're all so good and so juicy and they drive the point home so well. You've lost me after the second one, right? So that's something called the curse of knowledge. Now, you know everything there is to know about your project. You are excited about every single element of your project because it's from your heart that it came from, right? That's where you've been fueling this thing. So of course you want to tell them all about it. Mm-hmm. And what you need to be able to do is think about it from your audience's perspective and ask, not what is the feature itself, but what is the benefit that will come into their life by participating in it. Okay, so I'm going to give you let me give you an example. Okay, I think I talked about wallets before, right?
Mhm.
Here's the feature of the wallet is that, the inside, the little slots where you put in all the cards are cascading down instead of stacked one on top of the other, so that the wallet becomes thinner. Okay, good for you. I don't care about that. Here's the benefit. When you wear your wallet in your back pocket and it is really thick, you will develop back problems because you are constantly sitting on an angle. I don't want back problems. I'm willing to pay $20 for a wallet that will prevent me from getting back problems. So you can also tell me where each item was sourced, and we got this material from this place, and oh, it's made, and then we got this material, and here's the process of how it's made, and blah, 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 blah. Awesome. Tell me exactly how it's going to benefit me. So that's the key, is learning how to filter yourself. So the action forcing constraint here is that you only have 5 minutes. So without speeding through the pitch, tell me what's going to fit inside of 5 minutes that's going to move me and have me feeling the emotions that you want me to feel during those 5 minutes.
Thanks, I appreciate that.
Sure, my pleasure. It's easier said than done. I've given that sermon where halfway through it, as like I'm reading this whole quote, I'm like, why didn't I just tell them? Yeah, it also happens in Deuteronomy, and then just like move on. Instead, I'm like reading half the chapter to them out loud. What am I doing? Anyway, you get it.
I always know that I've gotten down in the weeds with, what gets me excited with the knowledge, when in the middle of a sermon, I'm also mentally making a grocery list.
That's right.
If I can't even hold my own attention, I've gone a little wide of the mark.
100%. 100%. Yeah. Yeah. Or you have then you have the clergy that kind of cheat, and they say, I was going to talk about this and this and this, but I'm not going to do that because we don't have time today. It's like you have that much knowledge that even the stuff you're not going to tell me, you have to tell me you're not telling me, because that's how much stuff you have in your brain about this thing. Folks, no one wants to know what you're not going to talk about.
And if you have a question, go ahead and raise your hand. And the other question I might have, Elan, is as people are doing this project and you've watched people create these, is there any wisdom on where maybe people get stuck, the frustration? Like, where's the push through? Is there any, every project's different, but what words of wisdom might you have for someone who is doing this and all of a sudden they go like, yeah, now I'm dropping out?
Doing this meaning entrepreneurship writ large, or making a pitch?
Yeah, maybe I think with a pitch. Like, let's say somebody's in the app and they're creating this thing and they're like, God, one more rejection, or what, I don't know what it is that, it's the push through maybe, and it could be general.
Yeah. There are ebbs and flows, peaks and valleys, I think is probably a better way to describe the emotional experience of running a startup. And I've coached something like 150, 200 startups over the years, and there are always peaks and there are always valleys. And the hardest thing when you are in the valley is to remember the peaks and keep your eyes on the peaks, because there are times when you're just like slogging and you're not getting traction and it feels like you're not moving forward. And what's important to remember, it's easier, on the other side of it, but what's really important to remember is that you can't just record the wins as progress, because the losses are progress too. The losses are progress too. Look at, I'm not like a big sports person, but you follow the Phoenix Suns, right? They made it, they were in the finals this year against the Bucks. They lost to the Bucks. The Suns had the worst losing record for the last 5 years. They literally had, I think, either the worst or the second worst in the NBA for 5 straight years. They lost almost more games than almost any other team in the NBA for 5 straight years. And this year they made it to the finals, right? if you can imagine how many losses they must have taken, if they thought of every loss as just a setback, there's no way they get to winning or building a winning culture. So if you go to a pitch and you get no yeses, like nobody raises their hand and says, I'm in afterwards, that's a loss. Yes, you didn't win that game, but it moved you towards your goal, right? It allows you to get better next time. So if you're feeling like, I have a pitch, it's not that great, I don't think I want to put it on the app, or I should be ready to upload it, but I just want to like think about it again and just try again. Just do it. The best thing about this invitation, let me frame it this way, and I'll show. The definition of an entrepreneur is the bearer of risk. An entrepreneur is one who bears risk. Now, for a lot of folks, that means like risking their livelihood, risking their name, their reputation, right? Risking security. Sometimes it's job security that you're risking. Certainly it's ego security, right? Building a startup, hanging your hat on it, and then having it fail. It's like, yikes, that doesn't feel good. I've done that, right? It's the bearer of risk. Now, obviously, they want to glean some reward. They want to be able to bring real benefit into the world for the people they serve, right? But it's the bearer of risk. This offering here, being a part of Soularize, putting your pitch up on the app, it is zero risk. It is 100% risk-free. You get to be an entrepreneur who bears no risk, just in this world that Shayna and Spencer have built for you. What an incredible gift. It's like 100% free risk. That's what it is. It's free risk. That's what you get. So that's what I would encourage. Just press upload. You're going to be in a community of people who lead with love. Right? You're going to be in a community of people who have done much worse than have failed. And I've fallen on my face 1,000 times more than whatever this one upload that you're putting in. I promise you. So just know that it's a loving community that you're becoming a part of. And if you're feeling like I'm not sure, just know that you get to be an entrepreneur, the bearer of risk. But this moment here is risk-free.
I love that. Thank you. Well, and each of the advisors within the startup panel are kind of offering different ways of supporting and caring for. Again, we've said that we're not giving away prizes to the best. What we're saying is, how can we support the projects? How can we give voice to people who might not have voice in another place? And how do we give a safe place for people to just start, just do it kind of thing? I love that. But think about as what you're offering. Again, I have taken advantage of this time with you within the START class. So could you share a little bit about that, of what you might be offering for people who are at a particular stage?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So I'm the founder of Glean Network. We've been around for about 5 years now. We've had, we run a number of different cohort offerings, and everything from source, where you can basically go from a little bit of curiosity to designing a startup idea, to start, which is a 10-week offering that comes with coaching and mentorship, partnership with Columbia Business School. You get a certificate in spiritual entrepreneurship, and you go from idea to launch. We have Shift, which is more focusing on like a set of leadership mindsets to lead institutions and startups in the shifting landscape of American religion. And then we have Serve, where folks come on board to serve as mentors of our spiritual entrepreneurs. So Start is the one where we are giving away 2 seats in the coming cohort, in our 6th cohort, which is launching at the beginning of November. And it's an incredible opportunity. Our entrepreneurs have now raised over $20 million, and many of the ventures have become real, like kind of flagship ventures in their regions, in their cities, in their denominations, and certainly have been replicated and thank God, have achieved the kind of success, have built the kind of world that our participants have dreamed of building. And the most important thing, I just want to say one other piece. The amazing thing about being in partnership with Columbia Business School, and we're Glean, we're like this tiny Columbia, big deal, is that our focus is we want to also have it, we want to develop in this cohort a nuanced understanding of what capitalism can become. Not what it is now, because it's toxic right now, right? But what it can become if we use them, if we approach the market in a different way. And so I think that's one of the pieces here. We don't talk about scaling because that's that's venture capital talk that projects onto spiritual entrepreneurs in a way that's really unhealthy and guarantees that all of us feel less than and inferior at the end of the day, no matter how big we get. But we do talk about is service. Are you serving your constituents? If you are, then we can find a way to build around that. That's the biggest starting point. So we're giving away 2 seats in the coming fellowship, in the coming cohort that launches in November, and we're really excited to see what kind of pitches come through, and hopefully we'll find some folks who are really interested in doing what we do with us, and staying a part of the Soularize community too.
I love it. When I went through, it was amazing and very meaningful. Not only the technique and knowledge and wisdom, but also the cohort. There really was a great opportunity, people, multiple faiths. And it was just a powerful time of really, kind of just as you saw today, Elan's teaching and many others. And so it's an amazing opportunity. And again, you don't have to be just part of Soularize to be part of it. You could go over to gleannetwork.com and find out a lot about what's going on there too. Well, again,
gleannetwork.org. And
sorry,
I'm going to put Spencer on the spot. He's coming back to teach again because last year, this last cohort, he came in for 30 minutes and they wouldn't stop talking about it all semester. They were like, when's, yeah, Elan, thanks for teaching that. When's Spencer coming back? So you're coming back, buddy. No question.
I love it. That's great. Okay. Gleannetwork.org. Yeah. Thank you so much. And again, thank you to all who have participated in this. And for those who are watching this afterwards, you go to soularize.live, L-I-V-E, believe it or not, there's a domain. So www.soularize, SOULARIZE.live, and find out more about how you can participate in this community and in startup pitches. So again, thank you for each of you for participating. Here, we'll turn off the recording.